It is time. So we are going to bring up our first poet, featured poet. She is our visiting collective resident. She is the poet laureate of Athens. I'm super excited for you guys to see her work. The personal stories that she submitted were very touching. I'm expecting that you guys are going to feel the same emotions that I felt upon reading her submission. Give it up for Stephanie.
There is a well in the front yard covered in plywood, and if you move the plywood to look inside, you will probably fall in, and no one knows how far down it goes or who has already fallen inside. And if there is a family of bones at the bottom that slowly dissolve and wash over your skin in the shower, that has to be where that fire salt smell comes from. There is a barn behind the garden that the landlord warned is falling in, and when you stack the rusted barrel on top of the feed bucket, you can climb in the window and learn to ignore creaks under your bare feet in the loft, and find a stack of musty blankets to hide under while you watch your brother kiss strangers. And don't mind those dead birds. Some naps just last longer than others. There's a wood panel bolted to your bedroom wall that has come loose, and when you look inside, all you can see is fractal black, like when you close your eyes and push your fingertips against your lids until it hurts. And later, like way later, you will know this as attic, but now you know this as mystery. And this means that what you already know is not actually everything. There is a sound that your mother makes, hunched over the kitchen sink, that sounds like a raindrop the instant before it hits the ground. And each time her hand baptizes that rag, she squeezes weightless, wishes she had fingernails. When she drops the fine china on the floor beside her feet, this is not accidental. That was in retrospect. My name is Steph Kendrick. I was born in Ashland, Ohio, which is right across the river from the most southern point in Ohio. And I found out Ohio actually doesn't own any of the Ohio River. It's all owned by Kentucky and West Virginia, which I was horrified by. So I wrote a poem about it. On discovering that the Ohio River is not actually owned by Ohio, I took my husband's last name, snatched it, plucked the old one from its station, and flicked it away. Now a new man's name has been stamped on my own. A kind man's name, the name of a man who smells good, cooks good, touches good, lays it down good. But this man is still not me, does not carry what I carry. My body is not his body, and the borders of this body are mine, and whatever spills from them during storms is mine still. I forget that I ever had another name, another heatless branding, until an old piece of mail turns up in a junk drawer, a reminder that I've been passed around, handed off, and labeled. So really, all of this is to say that maybe I know how the river feels. To have a name that doesn't sway its current, to be attached yet wild, ferociously untamed. By the river for a long time, so I have a few river poems to share. Woo, yeah! I love the excitement over the river. This one's called Baptism. If you think I'm going to bend backwards, head first in the shallow end of the Ohio River, you have rocks for brains. Those other kids lined up to be preyed on, pastor sweating, tears drip from his pores, turn to steam before cutting the surface. Tension punctuates our stories. Catfish big as cars swallow men whole. Bobby Joe getting hickeys on the Russell Bridge, then not making it home that night. Every damn time I have water to my knees, I am swimming away from boys who want to dunk me under, see me drown, and still come back for air. No thank you, preacher man. Acid draining from the holes in your face. Soaked through that Sunday suit, I see the stains, and there's not enough sludge in this whole damn river to wash us clean. Thank you. How I know the river is Sarah's woman. If you ask her if she would rather stay put, she will laugh at you in birdsong, drowning out those thoughts that she might have a choice. She moves at the will of wind and rain, gives in to the slopes of land made before she was fooled. She thrashes in response to thunder, spills. Her movement flows into the flora she feeds. She is home to life she did not create. All of its shit, tears, and rot becomes her, and she does not stop carrying it all. She can't. If you ask her if she would rather not hold this life that land can't handle, she would laugh at you in gasps for air, resisting the intensity of her erosion, leaving behind everything too heavy for the current, leading the rest into the sea. She dances under sun and moon, provides reflection to those who know how to look. Just one more river poem, I promise.
We love the river.
Below the surface. Sometimes the river looks this way, rushes west as though there's still gold to discover, as if teenagers who skinny dip inside her are bloodthirsty like bats, soaking their claws in her mouth, then pulling them out before the leeches take hold. Sometimes the river slows enough to reflect their faces, like my grandfather's Buick as it coasts to full stop in his garage. He'll take a peppermint from his suit, twist away the plastic, and convince his mouth it is not menthol. Sometimes the river stops completely, force frozen by a February breeze. My sisters, driven mad by living underwater, scratch the surface and learn to breathe with closed mouths, learn to swim with fists. Yet sometimes the river looks like this. Rural Appalachia, religion was pretty dominant in my home culture. My papa was a pastor, my mama was like the star organ player at her church, and my mom was a single mom of 3 who was desperate for free child care services, and after-school church programs were really good for that. So that inspired this next piece, slinging Bible verses and pepperoni rolls. For God so loved the world, he gave the village kids pepperoni rolls for a quarter. If they could show the baker a sticker they got for reciting verse at First Baptist. And isn't it something to a 9-year-old to stand in the pulpit of the very First Baptist church on this great big earth until the 9-year-old is a 20-something and finds out that there are First Baptists everywhere. And the earth is a lot smaller and maybe less loved than John said. And after whispering Luke over and over until their tongues blistered, "Blessed are you who are poor," they still knew nothing of kingdoms of heaven, adorned with repo notices and crumpled aluminum that covered those warm pepperoni rolls. Matthew might have called them cannibals. "Take this, eat my body," they joke. But this wasn't daily bread, and hunger isn't a metaphor. So on Wednesday nights, they repeated the words of men they'd never known until those words were all they could hear over the rumbling in their bellies. Thank you so much. I have to make the smooth transition to phone poems real quick. So I've been dealing with a lot of grief over the last few years, a lot of matriarchal loss. The loss of a great-grandmother in 2019, the loss of a grandmother in 2020, and the loss of my mother a few months ago. And you really just cannot get away from writing poems about that sort of thing. So we're going to shift into the grief segment. And this poem is called Grief. The ocean creeps closer, even as I move away. Can I just tell you, this is a metaphor for her death? We tiptoed around it long enough. The walk from my hotel to the surf, the way sand burns my feet 1,000,000 times, not at once, because sand is so many bits of centuries of leaving behind. The ocean rages loud. What else do we name calm that rushes at us like a monster, only quiets when she has us deep enough to pull us under? Dust. Somehow it all ends up here. Her Marlboros disintegrate in a warm can of half-drink Pepsi. Her mother earned on my mantle. Her. In August, cicada shells turn to powder under my heels. I know I must have inhaled dozens. I feel their birth song screech, sandpaper its way down my throat, and I am left with her face, 1,000 grains of sand, her smile finding its way back only in my head. Every single one of us ready to be carried away by a sudden breeze. Okay, I have two more on the theme of tragedy, and then we'll shift over and round it out with something maybe a little more positive. So I don't know if you remember this trial that made national news about Irmgard Furchner. She was the 97-year-old woman who was convicted of complicity crimes during the Holocaust. And so this made national news because there was a lot of conversations around the usefulness of this, right? This was an elderly woman who was no longer causing any trouble. And so it got me thinking about time, the weight of tragedy over time. And so I kind of throw my husband under the bus with another poem. On the trial of Irmgard Furchner. My husband tried to cook steaks in our kitchen once. He's a great cook. Never trained, but always trying new things. And he loves his steak. He laughs at me when I order well done and ready the sauce. A good steak, he says, doesn't need sauce. A little salt, a solid sear, scotch. Somehow, even all these years later, we can still smell the mistake. It lingers in the fabric of the coats that hung in the corner by the fridge. I've washed them, sprayed them down, saturated them with florals and seasonal abandon. But this morning, the ground frozen and unforgiving, I pull the coat from the rack, drape myself again in the heathered gray, reminded of the popping grease, the smatters on the walls, my screams against the flicker of flame flittering from the depths of the oven, how lucky we have gotten, how he hasn't tried cooking steak since, how these things stay with us even after the smoke settles. Thank you all so much. This has been so great. It's been really cool to come up to Columbus and experience Columbus for a couple of days. It's a little more fast-paced than Athens, which has been a nice jolt. And of course, meeting So's and being here with all of you tonight, I'm so grateful. So I just have two more cold weather poems. So in most of Appalachia and the Midwest, I think as we enter into these colder months, this also indicates that it's soup bean season, right? So I didn't really appreciate soup beans as a child, but time has given me more of a nostalgia, romantic feeling towards them. Pinto beans. First, look for stones, as if you were walking along a stream, stepping on the flat ones, lifting heavy ones with both hands, and waiting for the muck to settle. Keep those shiny ones in your pockets. Rinse them speckless, think waterfall, baptism, as if to say, wherever you were yesterday is forgotten. Fill a bowl with water from the tap, swirl them with one hand to disrupt the dirt from its bed, now dump it all away. Once clean, submerge them in clear water that becomes their home. Warm them like you were warm. Keep them and remember what boiling feels like, cold to hot so quickly, like you were warm. Can you remember the womb? We've skipped so many steps. The salt, how some of it might be your tears. From the young onion, you swear. Diced and sizzled, translucent with peppers that heat our throats, soothed by spoonfuls of bacon drippings. The final step is always to soften, which takes longer than we desire. Don't be rushed by temptation, the aromas that tease your senses and trick you into tasting too soon. How many disappointed mouths has your mouth been? Trust you'll know when they're ready, and trust you'll remember all the ways to savor. So we are creeping into the holiday season, some of us are making those forced sometimes trips down to see the family. So it's the inspiration for my last poem, En Route to a Family Christmas. Every year we pass the same schoolhouse, the one that never had indoor plumbing, never felt the quake of fluid rushing behind its walls or under its parquet tiles. I confess to him, it's the one I'd park behind under moons because no one could see us from the road. And there's something romantic about hiding and about a moonlit schoolhouse. He wasn't one of them in the passenger seat of my 95 Mustang, so I'm careful to leave out the memorable details. A palm stained with motor oil, a mustache sweet with nicotine. He has some stories too. A covered bridge off 56 that can't bear the weight of anything anymore. We pass it 2 miles from the schoolhouse. He inhales and holds it. I try not to wonder what she smelled like, how his hands warmed inside her thighs, how their lips emulsified, or if that mustache still smells of menthol. And just like every year before, as we pass the covered bridge, I take his hand, bring it to my lips, and we both exhale. Thank you so much, everybody.